First thing first, I would like to thank Alan Quell for giving me this opportunity to introduce you to the concept of digital identity and the future of digital identity. Digital identity is a vast topic. So today, my goal is to give you some keys to understand these concepts. I don't pretend to have the absolute truth around digital identity. As I mentioned, this is really a vast topic, and we could discuss about it for hours, even if not for days, right? And still, we have seen that today a lot of people are still debating about what it is, what it's going to be. So it's not even about days. It's certainly a matter of months and years before we have an absolute truth about it, if one day we have one. So what is it, before projecting us in the future, what is digital identity today? It's a vague concept, right? Because you don't have you have, when you're talking about identity today, you have the identity in the physical world and the identity in the digital world, right? We have data coming from what we call the online world and the offline world. What are these data? Typically, the data that you're going to find in the offline world are really what you can have already on your identity card or your driving license, right? You're going to find some interesting information like your date of birth, first name, last name, your social security numbers, and ID document numbers. It can be also your address. And if you extend that, it could be also what you are consuming, right? How many mortgage or loans do you have? What type of car do you drive? Typically, the information that a credit bureau can have about yourself.
Stop!
Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Don't let me go.
Paper, please.
Oh, toilet paper. I got it. Here, you got your toilet paper.
I said papers, please. Papers, please.
Oh, you want real toilet paper?
Papers.
What?
Identity papers. Papers, please.
Oh, you mean museum papers.
Oh.
And then you have the online world. The online world is also a more recent notion about identity, but the online world will have information about your email address, information about the IP addresses, what type of website you have been browsing the last 24 hours, the last 2 years, the last 5 years.
I love online gambling.
What are your occupation when you are online, right? What do you like to watch? All these kind of information that are online. Today, there is the Holy Grail, right, in the industry, in the identity industry, which is how can we merge the online information and the offline information to actually get to the a 360 view of an individual and understand better that individual as a whole and create that digital identity that is a merge between the offline and the online world. Let's have a look of what happened over the last year, right? With the pandemic, a lot of things have changed. And the notion of identity is starting to shift from offline to online. For the simple reason that when you are stuck at home, when you are just working from home, or you cannot even get out there, and you need to claim some benefit, to claim some your job and your identity to do properly your job. It means that a lot of information that were offline started to shift slowly toward the online world. And that's been quite a challenge for a lot of companies working in the identity space, in the security space, but not only, for a lot of different companies and different field. Can be your bank, can be your employers, can be the government. All these companies, all these institutions had really a hard time to move away from the offline information and shift them to the online information. And for a simple reason, there was no magic solution available out there. There was no necessarily anyone that can come and claim overnight, hey, I can resolve that. So the pandemic has really helped somehow to accelerate the digitalization of our identity. And if I go a bit further from that perspective, there is a few interesting metrics that are coming from McKinsey, among others. Over the last 12 months, we have accelerated the digitalization of the customers in general, the population, by 3 or 4 years. This is huge. Imagine last year, during a pandemic, we have been able to catch up with 2025, 2026 in terms of digitalization of our identity or interaction in general. So this is a huge step forward. And this is where you can see that in adversity, we have to adapt. And this is where human is super adaptable. And it includes when we talk about identity, but any other things in general, and we are really resilient. So what also it means, we have seen a global e-commerce increase by 20%. That means that we were shifting our habits totally, right? Coming from brick and mortar, going to online. So this is a huge trend shift that happened over the last 12 months.
Confirm jacuzzi delivery. Yes.
And we have seen a 40% increase of human-driven attack versus bots over the last 12 months. This really clearly draw a certain pattern on where we're going. On one hand, we digitalize a lot of our interaction, right? We accelerate them by 3-4 years. We increase and shift our habits from brick and mortar to online shopping, for example. But at the same time, the type of fraud perpetrated on the net are driven now more and more by human. So that's definitely the dichotomy in this war. But let's have a closer look at this type of attack that we have seen rising over the last year. The accelerated digital transformation brings some new vulnerabilities, right? These vulnerabilities have a few different factors. One of them is that more and more of our data usage is through a mobile phone, right? We estimate that by 2025, there will be 5 billion mobile internet users. This is huge, right? It's an estimated percentage of 75% of the human population will be browsing from a smartphone, internet on the smartphone. The mobile app usage grew by 40% year on year, right? With 35 billion mobile app download. It put a stress on all these application ecosystem and infrastructure, that's for sure. You need to know also that the most used application of all in most countries is the banking application and fintech application. So this is also putting a risk on the financial side, not only on your data, but also on your finance.
Bitcoin, no future. GameStop, no future. Okay. Oh. Gee. Good one. Let's buy. Okay. Here you go. Transaction done.
We have seen a growth of payment transaction, payment application like PayPal or Affirm, Afterpay by 22% year-on-year growth. This is huge. 80% of the breaches has been caused by stolen or brute force credential. We are not good either protecting our identity and identifiers and password going with them, or we are really also really bad at having actually good credential and good passwords.
How about 1111?
Huh. You good. That's my new password.
Okay.
And then Last one. I like just that one because it illustrates our time, right? Scams increased by 400% between March 2020 and the end of the year 2020. So making COVID-19, right, the largest ever security threat in human history. This is huge. And this is telling us one thing. Over the last year, all our identity, all our assets, online assets, have been a threat due to the pandemic. So this is where we need to find better ways in the future to protect ourselves, to protect our identity, to protect our accounts, to protect anything that we access online. Let's have a look at today's weakness. Definitely, there is one big major problem. There is a lack of identity data, right? This is definitely things that, as I mentioned earlier, you have the offline world, you have the online world, and both together, we cannot merge them yet. How are we doing that? How can we have a much more 360 overview of the users, right? Cyber fraud, trust and safety issues, one of them. Market fragmentation, big thing. What are, a lot of things about the market fragmentation. How is a user consuming in the US will be different of a user consuming in Thailand, for example. And how can we accommodate from one market to another and have a global overview from that perspective? We are in a global economy, right? And how can we reflect that also on how we're going to use data and identity in the future at a global scale? Technology operation, we're still, and we have seen that, we're still behind in terms of technology and how we operate that. Preventing fraud versus conversion, one of my favorite topic here. Preventing fraud versus conversion has been really a barrier to in a lot of growth hacking department, right? The conversion has been always like the pinnacle of what we need to do to grow and to get the conversion accelerated, to the detriment of preventing fraud sometimes, and vice versa. The too high barrier entry from a fraud perspective might prevent you to convert your users and to be successful. So how are you doing that? And then last one, the regulatory framework. And that one is even by itself one of the largest topics we can get today, right? All these data privacy acts, bills, rights that are emerging all over the world, right? From GDPR, CCPA, PIPEDA, LGPD, the Indian Data Privacy Act, same thing going in India, in Indonesia, sorry, in Singapore. So many different regulations, but again, global needs. Or are we harmonizing all these? And these are really the roadblock today in accelerating the global digital identification of the users. So I told you, I really like the myth of the today's solution between security and users' expectation. I think this one is a big one. You want, as a company, you want to convert as many users as possible. And for that, you are ready to actually downsize the security barriers.
Two-click mortgage? Let's do that, yeah.
And you accept fraud for that. You can, but you don't want to reject legit transaction in this false positive, right? The false positive rate is something I hear every day in the mouths of all customers and consumers. I don't want false positive, but I want to convert as many as possible users, right? It is also to poor user experience, and from that perception, you need to find, and when I say you, the companies, the enterprises need to find this good balance between the security and the user experience, just to make sure that the conversion is there. And today it's pretty difficult. Let's be honest, it's been difficult today. Why that? There is different ways to authenticate your users. There is some standard way to do that. The two-factor authentication, for example, is one that exists for a very long time, right? But we have disparate defense of mechanism, right? And this defense mechanism, they're going to go through a different layers of verification, different layers of aggregating all the necessary information to understand who is behind and who is the user behind this request. So you're going to start to verify the email, the IP addresses, the phone. Then you just want to understand, okay, do I own already some data on that user? If not, where can I find some of these data? Some behavioral data, super important today. I think this is really important that the behavioral data are being more and more dominant in today's world. Then other PII information, right, like the name and address. It's pretty important to understand also that when you want to identify a user and create that mapping of the digital identity of your users. And we've seen a lot of interesting work coming in, right? Machine learning, AI, training models, right? So that's where we see there is still a lot of uncertainty on what to do with all these data and how to manipulate them. Again, you have also some manual training, manual verification of these data. Then you can get actually an overview that you can then process or not a transaction from a user and verify if that user is the person they say they are. This is pretty complex. And today, there is some answer to that, but there is not a complete answer. As you remember, I mentioned to you that the Holy Grail today would be to be able to merge the online identity and the offline identity. So all these identifiers that I can find in both worlds, I would love to merge them as a merchant, as a company, as a government. I would love to merge them all together and be able actually to get this famous 360 view of an individual, including behavioral data, IP data, phone data, email, right? Name and address, and many more, right? Demographics. This, of course, in a strict, limited framework from a fraud management perspective. I'm not here talking about some marketing type of use cases or engagement type of use cases. I'm literally talking about fraud management. And this is really important to do the difference here. But what's really the behind this, right? You want just as a company to have one single reliable partner to engage with, right? And Ubiquity is that what you want. Ubiquity, how do you get Ubiquity? Today, in the online world, in the offline world, there is one common denominator as a phone number. The phone number is living in both the online and the offline world. And having the phone number that can allow you to merge all these information all together is a really powerful medium to create the famous 360 view on a users and enable a true digital identity about the users. And this is where you can create that ubiquity by actually aggregating all these data, merging them, finding that common denominator to the phone numbers, merging all together the information, and having finally something that look like a digital identity. The ideal solution, right, should provide really a growth. That's what it is. The conversion shouldn't be without friction and with a high security barrier. This is where we want to go. We want to de-risk the business, enable growth, increase the conversion, and of course, reduce the cost. I mean, because if it's to actually increase the conversion, but also increase the acquisition cost, it doesn't make sense. So this is where the solution not only to be ubiquitous, but also to be cost conscious. And this is where, again, we've seen that the common denominators being the phone numbers to merge online and offline identity is today one of the most powerful medium to do that. And where we can definitely help reducing cost, increase the conversion, enable growth, and de-risk the business. This is it for today's session. I really hope you enjoy your time on this vast topic. Again, I barely scratched the surface here, and I would like to hear more about your thoughts. Please reach out to me, reach out to Alan. I will be always pleased to discuss more in depth all these topics with you. And I really appreciate you spending time watching this video. And I hope you had as much joy watching it that I had to make it and record it. Have a fantastic rest of your month, year. Stay safe. And I hope we're going to be in touch and can talk face to face very soon, somewhere in this fantastic world, the real world and the digital one. Stay safe.